You want a gaming board that's cool, impressive, and doesn't cost the earth? Well, in this video, that's exactly what I'm going to cover. How to make a scenery set that's low cost, minimal effort, and can be used for any setting. I'm Peachy, and this is Peachy Tips. Oh, tea. Cheers. Right, scenery, making stuff. Ooh, tricky. Now, scenery is one of the things I love about this hobby. Making scenery, building environments, adding a setting to the figures that you've painted up and you want to play games on. And it always adds an extra level of story, like to Doll's House. When I say Doll's House, that means sticking in like furniture and loads of extra little bits of gubbins and stuff, whether that's feasting tables or bookcases. Doesn't really matter. I go mad when I do this kind of stuff and I love it. But I recognise that that's not everyone's bag. Not everyone enjoys making scenery. In fact, for some people, it's a huge chore, and I totally respect that, because if you're making scenery, you're not painting your minis. But there's the conundrum, because when you paint your minis, you want something to fight on, and for some people, painting the scenery can be quite a chore. It's a thing I've heard loads from my years of working in workshop, all the way through doing like live streams, and well after. Scenery is probably one of those things that tends to be a sticking point for some hobbyists. But how can I help you with that and make it accessible? Well, there's lots of things out there at the moment. I mean, I was recently at the UK Games Expo and other said events. Check out that video if you want to know more about that. And there's lots of scenery on offer out there, lots of scenery on offer. So Workshop obviously do their highly detailed plastic kits. They look amazing, well sculpted, but they do cost quite a bit. And to populate a table, you're probably looking at 200 quid, maybe a little bit less depending on which game system you're playing. So that is the side or the downsides of the plastic scenery. You can then move on to things like the MDF scenery. There's so many companies now, TT Combat, Sarissa Precision, they do some amazing sets. There's lots of companies that do it, but there is a bit of time involved in like getting those built, gluing them, getting them painted. That's always going to be the thing, is gluing them and painting them. There's no getting past that, and I guess that can be a bit of a sticking point as well. And then you can go down to the things like the 3D printed side of stuff, but not all of us have 3D printers. Maybe you know a friend that's got them. Sometimes the quality can be a bit off, so depending on the printer you've got. So that's not always practical for some people. I don't think there's many companies out there. There's a few that do, like We Print Minis, actually send you the physical prints. They're really nice, but I don't think they've reached into the scenery side of things at the moment. But then you've got battle systems that do cardboard scenery. 70 quid for a set, looks really good. I was quite impressed by these as well. But surely out there is a more cost-effective way of making scenery. And I guess the reason for doing this video, I recently did the Frostgrave video where I just talked about my excitement for Frostgrave. I had loads of cool comments about different game systems to try, and there was a lot of comments about scenery and making scenery for your gaming table. And Frostgrave, I assume Stargrave's no different, and I certainly get it from Silver Bayonet, that you need a fair bit of scenery on that table to make it interesting, to make it a little bit more, I don't know, not harder to play, but a little bit more interesting when it comes from a gameplay point of view. And that got me thinking, and there was a really interesting comment. I'll put it up if I can find it, because there's a lot of comments in that video, but it stuck with me. And I saw it as a challenge. And this comment was, have you ever thought about making like a scenery set out of wooden blocks? And I was like, no, that's quite cool. I like that. I'm gonna try that. So that's what this video is gonna be about, is me making a scenery set out of kids' wooden blocks. Now, Charlie is getting to the age where he's not interested in playing wooden blocks anymore. I mean, he's got Star Wars figures, he's got Lego, he likes cars, into Monopoly, all that kind of stuff. Building towers with wooden blocks, it's not his thing anymore. And we're having a bit of a tidy out, and we were going to take them, pass them on to second-hand shops and this, that, and the other. And I thought, you know what, I'm just going to hold those back because I've got a plan. So I kept said wooden blocks back to basically make this video and basically have a crack at, can I make a cool, interesting board using wooden blocks? And if so, how do I go about doing that? So let's investigate that. Let's delve into Peachy makes a gaming board out of wooden blocks. So I've got my wooden blocks. I know I'm going to make a video, and I decided I'm going to try and do it with a budget in mind and talk about that budget as well. So Although the wooden blocks for me, at the moment, I'm in a good place because the wooden blocks for me are free because they were my child's. We probably bought them a long time ago or got them passed on by someone else. So there's no cost there, right? I also have lots of sprays. Currently, I have a fair amount of sprays of varying colours. Also, no cost there because I bought them for different projects or different paint jobs. I've got like filler, I've got glue guns, I've got all the tools I need, right? So for me to do this video, zero cost. However, if you don't have any of this stuff, let's have a bit of a look at how much this is going to cost you in comparison to maybe buying a plastic kit from Workshop or getting some MDF from Sarissa Precision. So spray paints are going to be your sole biggest cost. Depending on where you get them from, whether that's Citadel, Army Painter or Colourforge, they are varying different costs. I'd recommend Colourforge, mostly because you get 3 larger cans, they dry quite matte. It costs 30 quid, so that's why I say it's your biggest cost. If you're doing the bundle of 3, then obviously pick another colour, because I only use 2 colours when I do scenery. I do a colour to go in the recesses and a colour that kind of sits on the top from a zenithal kind of spray. So I've always done that with my scenery, whether that's my Warcry scenery, my 40k scenery, my Star Wars scenery. I've always done this 2-tone approach where I spray the whole lot with like a green or a grey, and then I just dust it from an angle with a sandy kind of colour or whatever. And it kind of like shades and base coats it for you. So that's your biggest cost. You're going to need some other bits of tools. I have a glue gun, which is really handy. It's been passed down to me by Mrs. Peach. She does a lot of hobbycraft stuff as well. I was doing a little bit looking around on Etsy and Amazon and all the other sort of sites you can look at, even auction sites. And you can get them from as little as 4 quid. So far you're looking at £30 for your sprays. Let's say you're doing the bundle deal from Colourforge. You're looking at £4-ish, let's say 5, let's round up to 5 because of postage or whatever. For your glue gun, you also need, well, you don't need this part because I will show in the paint guide in a bit how you can do it without ready mix filler, but I think ready mix filler is quite a useful tool. It adds a bit of texture to it, makes it feel more like rock. You could use actual textured paint as well instead, or make your own, get some like emulsion, mix in some sand or whatever, and coat over that, because you can get scenery, masonry paint, that's the word. You get some masonry paint as well from like the hardware stores. So you can always use that. So that's about 4 quid as well. So we've got £30 for your spray, we've got £4 for your glue gun, I said 5, round it up, and then about £4 for your ready mix filler. So you're looking like £39.40 all round up. And then of course there's the wooden bricks themselves. Again, I did a little bit looking on this on auction sites, around charity shops. You can get them from as little as £2, big bag for £2 from a charity shop, or go on an auction site and get like a decent sized bag or a box for about a tenner, and anywhere in between that. So let's chuck an extra tenner on that 40 quid, so it's about £50 in total. But Peach, I hear you say, that's 50 quid. I mean, I could spend that on a Games Workshop scenery kit. You could, but you don't get the glues with that 50 quid. You don't get the spray coats for that 50 quid. You don't get the fillers for filling gouts, which is what I always use instead of green stuff. And you've got a glue gun if you need it as well. And all these things you've got, you can use for future projects. So it is a large cost in one go, granted, but it's going to last you for many more projects to come if you do want to go down more routes of doing more scenery. Because I imagine you might go, you know what, I quite like doing this, I'm going to get some more wooden blocks, or I'm just going to kit bash some stuff out of balsa wood and some lollipop sticks and this, that and the other. You can do what you want. But the gear's there, and also you've got those sprays ready for other sort of projects. And if you've got plastic scenery or MDF scenery, you can use it on that as well. Spray it in the same way, ties it in with your scenery set. That's something I often do. Is every kind of scenery set I've done, I've had very similar colour schemes, so I could just mix and match if I need to. So yes, there is a £50 cost in total. If you were, that's max as well, by the way. That £50 is max. You could probably find it cheaper, and depending where you get your sprays from, whether that's a hardware store as well, or you've got, you've been to like, I don't know, Hobbycraft and there's been a sale on or whatever, you could get all these things a bit cheaper if you shop around. That's the other thing as well. I'm maxing out as the most cost, which is still the same price as just one plastic kit from Workshop or a resin kit from some other kind of company or whatever. But yeah, there is a cost. I mean, looking at like the Realmscape, 60 quid for a handful of Age of Sigmar buildings, £52.50 for a bunker and some walls for 40k. I mean, you're already winning. But you're looking at me right now probably going, but it's just a load of coloured wooden blocks. What am I supposed to do with this? Well, hold on to your butts, because you're going to be in for a ride, and I'm just going to show you what I did with my scenery set using the wooden blocks. So let's get cracking and do that. So we're going to need some bricks, obviously, and then we're going to need some ready mix filler, a glue gun, obviously a fair few glue sticks, and then I'm just going to make some space on my desk and then start planning out my build. So the best thing here is do some dry tests, like, you know, set it up, see what looks right, a couple of trials and error before you actually do any gluing. I'm just looking for archways at the moment before I do any walls, maybe do some pillars. Again, not just testing, see what I like the look of. Obviously, as a child, I used to build stuff like this all the time, so it's quite easy to just come up with ideas, but I just want to do a bunch of wall sections, maybe some steps, got some steps coming on here. Then after that, it's just a matter of getting that glue gun and then just starting to attach them together. I didn't really clean them, so I mean, that's something you could do. You could always give them a bit of a wipe over, but really, I mean, they were fine. The glue gun does a lot of the hard work. You will get the stringy bits, obviously, from the glue gun, and then it's just a matter of going through and then doing all the gluey bits for these walls. I mean, also the great thing with a glue gun is if you do make mistakes, you can just rip it off, clean off any of the hard glue, and then just redo it. That's the beauty of it. I tried to keep some of the designs symmetrical, so I have a couple of the similar style designs. So like there's two here of this type of wall section. Don't know why, I like symmetry, maybe. Maybe that's part of my brain. A couple of pillars. I mean, I could have done a square block on each of them, but I just thought I'd keep it simple like that. Then it's making some arches. Again, getting that glue gun to build up the blocks a bit and add a bit of stability to it is key. My only worry was this little arch bit wouldn't probably be the most strongest connection, but actually they were more robust than I expected them to be. Obviously the colours as they are at the moment, it's very play school, but you know, it looks cool. Once it's painted, it'd be even better. You know, just test fitting here, not really actually going to glue them on. I mean, I could do, but I just want to see what they look like. Adding some of these other bits to it. Sometimes halfway through the build, it's worth just having a bit of a play, just make sure you're happy with some of the builds that you've done. They're not going to be 100% flush fits. It is glue gun getting in the way a bit, but you know what? It's all for fun and it's all super cheap, and I'm really chuffed with how they're looking so far. And then really it was just about building a bunch of modular different pieces that I could use for various types of terrain and setups, and then just having a bit of a play, setting them back up, see if I'm happy with the results, maybe break some bits off, rebuild, but actually, you know what, I was pleased with what I've got there. On this particular piece, because I think it was actually used for the box lid, because it had like string going through it, I just thought I'd cut into it, make it like some kind of weird magical tesseract or something like that, or just some weird designed stone. So I just thought I'd clip into it. Next up is to mix up some filler, because what I'm going to do now is start applying all the filler to my wooden walls and archways and this, that and the other. Got some Wilko's filler here, rest in peace Wilko's. I initially start off applying it quite heavily in areas, then I just add some water to it and then just run that round. You will get some brush strokes here, so you can always wipe it with a damp cloth or wipe over your fingers to get rid of some of those streaky bits. But initially it's just getting some filler in the cracks to try and hide some of those big joins, and also any of the glue from the glue gun that's showing as well, because that can be quite annoying seeing big lumps of glue gun in cracks and stuff. So a lot of it's just to hide that and fill some gaps and add a bit of texture as well. But as you can see, it's quite a messy job. Wear gloves if you want to. I'm not allergic to any of this stuff, so I just use my fingers, wasn't that bothered. And then just get some cloth and wipe off bits if you need to. And the key here is not to overthink it as well, just apply it on, go quite heavy to start off with, make sure you get those gaps filled in, so you're not got like massive gaps. But then at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter if you do, because it's like architecture. There'll be gaps and there'll be broken bits and this, that and the other. Also find stabbing sometimes with the brush is quite good, gives you a bit of extra texture. The archways are chunky beasts, so they did require a little bit more time to fill those gaps, but you know what, it was worth it in the end. And it was a bit of a messy job. There was a lot of cleanup between cups of tea. Unfortunately, this bit did break whilst I was doing it. I was probably being a bit too heavy-handed, but I made sure the areas where the glue was, I didn't cover in filler. Then I was going to cut off any old glue and then just reattach it. And after that, it seemed to be quite sturdy. I think I was just being super heavy-handed when I was applying the ready-mix filler. So yeah, as you can see, I'm just wiping off any of that filler that's near the areas I want to glue, removing off any of that excess glue, and also just exposing some of the wood underneath so I can then reapply the glue. Just got to wait for that old glue gun to heal up again. The other downside to doing this kind of stuff as well is because the glue gun doesn't have very long before it dries, you do have to rush in a bit, but also make sure it does look symmetrical and it does look perfectly fitted. Of course, classic tea break, a nice cookie, and of course a hot brew. Vitally important. And then after that, it was spray time. So with this particular stonework, I wanted to start off with a dark grey underneath. So I went with Mechanica Standard Grey as my undercoat. Sometimes I like to go green first, so I get like that nice mossy effect in the recesses. But this time around, I was just going with the Mechanica Standard Grey, greeny grey kind of tone. Now I'm using an old cork board here. I got that from a charity shop for like, well, I got 4 for £4. It panned out as like £1 each. And what I'm going to do once I've done all this is probably spray that and texture that in the same colour I've done this, so I've got like a nice interior sort of setting as well if I wanted to do that. Work your way around and give them a good spray all around. What you'd have to probably do at times is let it dry, reposition, move around. There was a little bit of dribbling here on some of those sides, as you can see there, but I'm not that fussed about that because once it dries it will just look like texture or some kind of skim across the actual stonework itself, so it's all fine. Then I'm just going to get some Xandri dust and dust that from an angle. Now I can only apologise here because I thought I was in shot for most of this, but because I was on my own and I was trying my best and I don't have any spare blocks, you'll have to just deal with the awkward camera angles, I'm afraid. Super sorry about that. I'll get better. Should have stood further away, maybe. I'm still learning. I mean, this one's a better shot. You can see a bit more what's going off. Once all my spray was thoroughly dry, the next stage is to do some dry brushing. So I'm going to get some bone tone that is a little bit lighter than the Xandri dust that I've used. And then all I'm going to do is just heavily dry brush that over the edges. And where you've also got that nice texture coming from the ready mix filler. In places I'm going to be quite rough, other places I'm going to be quite sort of gentle about it. Mostly near the top it'll be rougher, a little bit more heavier, and then as I get further to the bottom or the base of the stonework I'll be a little bit more softer. Obviously with lots of different shapes and sizes, the way you approach your dry brushing can vary. So you might want to be a little bit like heavier with some of the hard angles like on these square blocks, but where you get like more circular bits or rounded bits, you might want a bit more softer and do circular motions. That will just help cover those areas better and give a smoother finish. At first it can seem quite overwhelming when you've got lots of like walls and buildings or whatever in front of you, but once you get a workflow going it speeds up quite quickly and you just dry brush some edges on one block and then you move to the next one, then you move to the next one. Before you know it, it's pretty much all done. That's the beauty of sometimes just doing a little bit of a product line when you're doing dry brushing. Certainly when you've got a load of scenery in one go, that's the best thing to do, is just product line it. Obviously don't forget to have a cup of tea as well. That's vitally important. Or coffee, whatever your hot beverage of choice is. Now this one here has had no filler on it at all. I just sprayed it as it was without any ready mix filler. So if you don't have access to filler or you can't get any like texture in there, you can just spray the wooden blocks as is and then just dry brush them up like I'm doing here. The only downside is if you're using the glue gun, you will get some of that stringiness and some of that weird sort of finish that you get from the glue gun in those cracks. But if you can live with that, that's fine. You can always hide it with some grass tufts or whatever. Once on the tabletop next to each other, I'd probably struggle to tell the difference actually. A minute difference in texture, I suppose. You can see just on the back there, there's a bit of a splodge where the glue gun was, but you know, you can be a bit more careful and not as slapdash as I was. With that first bone tone done, what I'm now going to do is move on to a slightly lighter tone, and this is going to be super light dry brushing just on the edges, just to help pick out like corners, a little bit of extra texture and stuff, but I'm not going to go as mad as I did with that first dry brush. You don't even have to do that middle dry brush, you can just skip straight to this one if you wanted to, just for a little bit more contrast and punch on those edges. I just wanted like a little bit of a halfway house before I went to this slightly brighter bone tone. And again, work your way around to all the buildings, carry on that product line, listen to your favourite soundtrack or have your favourite TV show on the background. That usually helps speed things along quite a bit. Now one thing I wanted to do was add a little bit of colour to these sections, so I decided to get some red and then just mark out. Now the great thing here is if you thin it down a little bit, it does look like faded paintwork. I wasn't quite sure where I was going to go at first with all this, so I thought I'll just do some little designs like lines and stuff. This is like to look like some ancient text from like an alien race or an ancient wizard cult or something like that. So I did like some vertical lines, some diagonal lines. I wasn't really overthinking about what this would look like. I wasn't making it symmetrical. I just decided to make it look like some weird pattern and text. I mean, you can do what you want. I just wanted to make this look like, well, it could be anything. It could be some old ancient language or just a cool pattern. Because it's slightly thinned down, it soaks into the texture a bit more, looks a little bit more faded. Some bits you can, do a second coat if you want to make it look a little bit more like fresh paint. Now this was all freehanded. I wanted to do that was through choice, just because I wanted to look like it's been hand painted, so to speak. But you can use masking tape, and I do show you in a bit how to do that. But yeah, I'd sometimes like to do things freehanded. Maybe I'm a bit crazy like that, I don't know. Again, just carrying on with those cool patterns and stuff. Chuck some circles in there. So if you did want to have some more accurate maybe or consistent lines, then you can mask off like I'm just doing here, getting some little fine masking tape. What I'm planning on doing here is just doing some broad red bands around the stonework. I mean, you can mix and match if you want to stretch your skills, do like some masking off and then do some freehand. That's also, good fun. Again, using the old sponge effect, not going all the way to the edge as well, so it looks like, a little bit sandblasted, a little bit worn and weathered. Can always dry brush back over that if you need to. Again, the paint is slightly thinned down in places as well, so it will soak in a bit more. And it's just a matter of just working your way around and masking off the bits you want to. I had no plan when I did this. I was just playing it by eye, going, oh, that could do with some more colour, this can do with some more colour. And I think when you've got a lot of scenery in front of you, that's probably the best way to approach it as well, is do a little bit, look at it, because you can overdo it. I think that's what I'm getting at here, is you can overdo the markings or the colours and stuff. So I was just playing it by eye and just seeing what needed a little bit more colour or a little bit more punch to it. And then once that was all done, all those markings are on, I just dry brushed over. I don't know, I got some bone on that area there, but I wiped it off and it was fine. Must have been on my fingers or something. Okay, just doing that dry brush on the edges just makes it a little bit more sandblasted, weathered, old. It's seen a few centuries in its life, maybe longer, maybe thousands of years. Here, what I wanted to do was do like a slight fade, getting close to the bottom, so it was a stronger colour near the top, but it was fading near the bottom. So all I was doing was just using the sponge and just being a little bit less heavy as I got closer to the bottom. Tear the old masking tape off, which is super satisfying. To add a little bit more interest to the red markings as well, I decided to get that first colour I used for the dry brush and then just kind of not cut back in, but add a little bit more punch and designs. These were more like as if it was something to do with the solstice, or like the planets aligning or the moon aligning, so the dots are like stars. This was designed for Frostgrave, but it would equally work quite well with Stargrave or some kind of weird 40k temple ruin, maybe anything really. I mean, everyone has stars and suns in their universes, I'm pretty sure of that. And then here I was just doing a little bit of script on the block, so it looks like some ancient scroll or some wizard text, maybe some wizard graffiti, don't know. Just little flicks, horizontal lines, vertical lines, diagonal lines, dots. But my favourite part that really helped finish it all off was adding loads of grass tufts. And for me, that really helped finish it off. And then really the last bit is just to set up the board. So I just decided to play around a bit, move the scenery around, see what it looked like. And that's the great thing about this, is it is now a play set, so I can reposition it, I can move things around. It's quite modular. I mean, it could be more modular, I could make them all single blocks, but I think they'll get battered and chipped a bit more. So that's why I wanted to glue them as blocks. But yeah, got myself a nice looking ruin, which I'm super proud of. Really chuffed for this. There we are. Okay, so one thing I felt going into this was, when I had this idea, I was like, this is cool. This is going to be a quick, easy little sort of guide on making some scenery, just a bit of fun. I wasn't expecting like a grandiose scenery set. I was just like, just some wooden blocks, painted different colours, making them all match, sticking them on my board. And it's a really quick little modular way of making some cool ruined things for Frostgrave. All in all, complete candidness, this was mostly designed in mind for Frostgrave. It's like some old ruined wizard's temple or something like that. However, after I built it, I was genuinely surprised by how much I fell in love with this scenery set. It's insane. I was like, I wasn't expecting it. I had like ideas in my head. I'd used my mind's eye to put it all together. But when it was all when it was finished, when it was sprayed, it was painted, had all the texture paint, like the grass tufts, and started doing those little red details like the paintwork or, masking stuff off. I actually fell in love with it. And not only that, but then I looked at it and went, that could fit into Stargrave, that could fit into Star Wars, that could be some ruined temple in a Gaunt's Ghost sort of like setting, some weird chaos temple. I could use that for Silver Bayonet as like an evil sort of temple they've got to take down. There's so many game systems. I'm now looking at this scenery set that I can use it with. It's bonkers. And I wasn't expecting that. The emotional ride I had during initially just getting these wooden blocks, gluing them together, and then starting to put some texture paint on, going, it's a bit of fun. I like a little bit of hobby. I've not done a scenery build for a little while. To where I am now, I'm just like, I'm generally blown away by how much I like this. And yeah, so what, I'm blowing my own trumpet. I don't care, because I really enjoyed doing this. And I think that's what it is. It's more the enthusiasm and the end result that I'm excited about. And I don't think it can end there. And this is something to bear in mind as well, is this is just the surface of what you could do with wooden blocks and kids' toys, I suppose, if you're going to go down that route. They're wooden, so they're quite cheap. I'll probably argue as well, like, I say environmentally friendly. You are cutting down trees, but as long as those trees are being replanted, that's a win. At the moment, it is a blank canvas. Apart from like putting some details on it and having the grass tufts, you could get some wooden stirrers from a coffee shop and make wooden planks that connect different walls, or maybe make like a palisade going around some of it. You could turn some of those walls and give them like some wooden paneling on it. You could even make buildings out of it. You can use it as a structure to make buildings and then put wooden bits around it as well. You can get some extra details, maybe some resin bits and details you can get glued into there. Whether that could, you can make a storehouse, you can get like some, I don't know, bags, pouches, all sorts of random debris on the battlefield, barrels, crates, you can scatter those around. There's so much. One thing I'm looking at doing, because after painting it, it felt a bit like, is it Takadona? I forget what it's, the place in Force Awakens, and you've got Maz's castle, that place. It reminded me a little bit of that in parts, and also stuff like the Mos Eisley kind of vibe, or like Star Warsy kind of buildings. And I was thinking you could get like domes, get like little domes, like half-cut plastic domes and stuff. I can make like a little structure, stick that on top, and then spray it all the same colour as well. And then that looks like a cool temple, which could then be some kind of maybe Eastern temple that the Silver Bayonet guys have got, some Eastern baddie, some, I know, maybe from Constantinople. Maybe that's where Dracula is, Vlad the Impaler or whatever. So you can do all sorts of cool narrative hooks and add extra little bits to it as well. So I think I've scratched the surface with this. It's a big iceberg. We're on the tip at the moment. And I think there might be future videos down the line where I do more scenery sets using different wooden blocks or whatever, or just adding to what I've got and then building upon that. And the colours I've used are just the colours I chose to use on my board. You could easily do like red stone, like spray them black whilst it's still wet from an angle, dust them with red. So it's almost like a black to crimson fade. Maybe call it blood towers or something like that. You could do them white, you could do them sandstone, you can put them in the desert. You could paint them blue and then stick them on a weird alien world as like, you could do them green like Necrons and stuff like that. You could do anything. So that is the big takeaway for me, is although they are building blocks, you can add so much more to them and make a cool scenery set, and you can probably populate a board. Let's say if I got another bag of wooden blocks for another £5, I could have double the amount of scenery or make it higher. So I'm actually on 55 quid instead of 50 quid for an amazing gaming table. And yes, I'm well chuffed with this, and you'll probably see these buildings featuring a lot more random shots when I do my little photography for my paint guides, etc. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found something from it, whether that's something as simple as like, I never thought to use ready mix filler to fill gaps. That's really obvious. I've always been using green stuff all this time. You know, whatever it is, throw in the comments what you liked, any ideas you want to see. If you've got your own ideas on what kind of stuff you've done for scenery from a cheap kind of point of view, or when I say cheap, because that cheapens it, but like a cost-effective point of view, throw in the comments, let me know, because I'm excited. This whole video came from one comment on my Frostgrave video. So that goes to show that, you know, chucking stuff in the comments might actually encourage me to like try something a bit different, or, you know, challenge my way of thinking when it comes to making scenery. So, you know, comments are important to me. You guys are important to me. Even, you know, the naysayers that don't like the stuff, you know, it's good to talk. It's good to have those opinions. If you don't like it, cool. Say you don't like it. It's not for you. Tell me why you don't like it. What is it about you don't like? So yeah, do throw these things in the comments, because it's interesting to know. I like to get people's ideas and steal them and make videos out of them. That's what I do. Well, thank you to my patrons. You people are beautiful. And yeah, sorry for making a random video about wooden blocks, but thanks for your support and sticking with me for that weird video. But I know you'd enjoy it, because it is cost effective and a bit of fun. More stuff like this down the line, I imagine. I do like doing scenery builds. I will use the dining room table to do some more hobby, because I can spread out a bit more. I've got a big sheet so it won't damage the table, Mrs. Peach. Don't worry, the table won't get damaged. So that was quite fun, actually spreading out and doing something a little bit bigger. So I foresee now I can, as I have a small room, it's a bit harder to do bigger projects, but you know, if I'm just very tactical about how I protect the dining room, then it should be okay to do slightly bigger projects. But yes, I love you all. Thank you so much for watching. And I'll see you in the next one. And oh yeah, you'll probably see this in one of the battle reports. This scenery I foresee will be used in one of the battle reports, which I will be filming soonish. It's just, again, using the kitchen table. Yeah, it's just me trying to plan out how I'm going to do that. But I'm getting close to a story. I'm getting close to how I'm going to film it. I just need to actually put my finger out and film it. So yeah, till the next time, Peach out. Well, time to buckle up and hold on to your hats. No. Hold on to your seats, because hold on to your butts, as Samuel L. Jackson would say from Jurassic Park. I don't even know what the phrase is.